Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Thursday Power Rankings show. This week, it's open/unlimited super stock, and we're joined by one of the top guys in that category, Mr. Jordan Lustig. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you. And as always, we got Wyatt and Shane joining me tonight too, and we're gonna go back and forth and probably tick some people off tonight, like we ordinarily do on this show, by omitting and/or promoting where you disagree. But as always, jump in the comments and let us know how we're wrong, how we're right, and how I can ignore you because I don't care. How's everybody doing tonight? Good?
Yeah, good, man.
Pretty solid.
Real good. Just had dinner and jumped on here.
Jordan, how are you guys coming with your farming? Are you guys about done for the year, or you still got a ways to go?
We just finished yesterday. And for us, this early, we just had killer weather this fall. It was unbelievable. We were commenting, like, brought everything in, like, to get cleaned up and stuff, and we don't have a lick of mud, like, nowhere on nothing like we normally do. And like Draper belts freezing on the bean head and stuff like that didn't happen. And we were just super blessed with great weather. So we finished probably a good week and a half of what we normally would do. It was just the best we ever had.
Sorry, Brent, I meant to click on you, and you were doing it too.
Yeah.
No, that's good. So is that going to free you up? You going to take a vacation, or are you going to get in the Bullet Motorsports shop and start wrenching?
We're going to get in the shop and start wrenching. Yeah, me and the wife, we're going to take a little vacation coming up here, but pretty short because, yeah, we got plenty to do. I
hear you. Brent, joining us here a minute or two late. Brent, did you do a ranking tonight?
I just
okay.
Listen.
I wasn't sure if I was going to have to update the screen or not, but before we throw that up there and get into our top 10s individually, I'll open the floor to any honorable mentions you guys care to mention.
Shane, go first.
All right. Honorable mentions for me, kicking it off, is going to be High Hopes out of New York. They ran really well up in New York summer from what I could tell, but they just had some breakage that didn't allow them to make all the hooks. But I think you catch him on the right night, on the right track, he's definitely going to be up there for sure. And then International Threat of Blackburn, they suffered breakage pretty bad on that tractor this year.
Yeah, I've got two of the same there. Like you said, my 6 High Hopes, they had a good summer. They had a bunch of state wins and runner-ups, but like you said, breakage got them. They'll be a threat soon. Like it's International Threat also, and then I had Full Tilt and Lessons Learned with the Get Your Family.
Yeah, I had Lessons Learned too. You're right.
For my honorable mentions, I threw in there the guest we had on the Monday show here a few weeks ago. The Halls with G1000 is one of those there. Field Forged as well, which they did have a Champions Tour win. And one other, I mean, it's power ranking. If they choose to do it, I think they're a threat. I got to put Payne and Super Rooster in there. The few times he hooked with the alcohols, he was right there.
Very true. He did have a really big state win.
He did.
Ohio State, where he let out and he's still over 400.
Yeah, he did. He sure did.
Yeah, those guys you all mentioned, those are tough running tractors for sure.
Did it seem like the numbers were about as normal as they've always been, or was it down? Was it up from years past, or where do you think it was?
I would say this year we were probably slightly up compared to like the last couple, 3 years, 4 years. Like we were in a downward trend. And I tell you what alleviated a lot of that was, like in our class, we don't really have enough tractors. If you want a big show, to have a PPL hook on top of an NTPA show. So that's when our class is going to suffer. So with our class with NTPA backing off on the hooks, not having quite as many, it's actually, I feel like, helped our class, both NTPA and PPL, if you understand what I'm saying. Just like, because there's just not that conflict where guys have to decide for sure, hey, I got to go to, here versus there. If they can make them all or whatever, then you have a pretty good show.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'm pretty sure that definitely helped numbers on both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like the idea when you're performing at this kind of a level, the idea that less is more. It's not even just the scheduling conflict aspect of it. It's just the time to wrench and regroup and make sure that you're ready to perform all in.
Well, yeah. And I was going to say, I can just tell you from our experience of running over 25 years in this class, you always got to run on the edge, obviously. Like, I feel like in our class, which is happening in a lot of different classes at different times, but it's like with turbo technology and everything, we could just make ungodly amounts of horsepower and like show a dyno sheet that would just blow your mind. But you can't necessarily get that onto the track, if you know what I'm saying. It's just, especially get to a mediocre track. And we've been fighting chassis setup. We had a new chassis built about 3 or 4 years ago, and we can't seem to make the thing work. So we've backed our horsepower down like tremendously just to try to get the thing to work. And so we're going to be doing a lot of chassis tuning this winter. We got some ideas, maybe what's going on. And so it's like, the guy who makes the very, very most power isn't necessarily the guy probably pulling the sled the farthest. Not always. Sometimes, obviously, it is. But, it's, boy, getting that power to the ground is a big deal.
Yeah, I see it in other classes as well, where so much attention gets paid to making more power that some of the chassis work almost becomes a bit of an afterthought. And really, right now, with tire technology being where it's at, and we've had a few guests who've even identified that there's probably some opportunities for growth in the clutch can too. It's being able to deliver what you can make and make it all work in terms of putting it in the ground.
Oh, absolutely. Because it's like making so much power, and then of course tire technology. It's taking more and more front end weight always. So when you're trying to make the front axle weigh like over 5,000 pounds out of 8,000, now we're having a hard time leaving the line because we just don't have no weight on the back tires to get. And then the pan of the sled comes off the ground. We're pulling just straight, no drawbar pull. So it's, boy, that management of getting that going, like you've noticed now, it's been going on a couple years in a pro stock class where it used to be, boy, you just pin it and away you go. Now you see them driving them out, and that's working a little bit better, especially on a certain tracks. And we've on our tractor, we've been trying to drive it out for 15 years. Like I can't hardly remember back ever just pinning it and just going for it. I mean, maybe like in the mid 90s or something like that, but it's a matter of getting it going. It's like a drag race. In other words, none of the high horsepower classes just pin it and just let it go. It just don't really work that way.
Yeah, and you're hamstrung, particularly in this application, with being tied to mechanical fuel. You can't necessarily dial up a power ramp like a drag race guy can. So it's a challenge. You really have to do it yourself as the driver.
Yeah, and then the the multiple stages of turbos and trying to build that boost in different stages and working the clutch and I the alcohol tractors want to just like go high revs, like they're just looking to go high revs. So at the starting line that hurts you, where the diesel tractors like that pull in our class sometimes they lend themselves, I think, a little bit better because, for a diesel tractor, they're running a lot of RPMs. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not saying that, but they're developing that torque, and that lends itself to getting that sled going a lot faster early on, I feel like, and that's where they have an advantage, I think.
Fair enough. Well, guys, let's get into our top 10 and start kicking around some names here. Put the screen back up there. Give me a sec. I guess I'll start it off. For number 10, I did go to the state and regional well, and I came up with the Buckeye Bandit out of Ohio. Didn't really – I don't know if they ever hooked with any Grand National Champions Tour events, but it ran really well on the state and regional tour, and I think would be a threat if Ellikers chose to go there.
Very true. Very true.
They made I like it.
And Jordan, if you got anything to say about these guys we got on here, feel free.
What I was going to say, yeah, I noticed that tractor did a lot of winning this year. And it, like pictures or videos I've seen, they've got it to where it's pulling nice. It's picking the front end up. It's carrying it the whole way, making pretty nice straight runs, and that makes a contender out of it for sure.
Yep, agreed.
All right, I'll go with my number 10 man on the screen, Mr. Jordan. You had 2 top 5 this year. You didn't place 6th place points. You had a really beautiful pass in Tolma. I watched that in person. I know you're always a threat. It's just like you said earlier, it's just getting that chassis to work and lay down a great pass where you can get it to the ground and get out there.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. I would love to say I'm number 1, but I'm very realistic. My tractor, it's not there right now. It has been in the past, obviously. It has the potential. Like, I think you could see a little bit of it at Toma. It still was backed off on horsepower for that pass. It just was – we were lucky to make that kind of run. If we can get to making those kinds of runs and we get a balance on it and get – to be able to start utilize some of that power, I think we could move ourselves up the ranking, but hey, it is what it is.
Very true.
Over to you, Shane.
All right, for number 10, I went with a full tilt tractor. I got to see him run in person for the first time at the Polaris Championship and was really impressed by what I saw, and he runs well whenever he shows up.
You know what? I can actually – I don't know if anybody's having trouble seeing this. I can actually make this a little bit bigger here so it's easier to read.
How many times did Navingers get out on the tour, like big Champions Tour hooks?
I want to say in cruising results, I had seen them a handful of times. I mean, it wasn't – I don't think they ran a full tour, but, I mean, I got to believe they were there 8 or 9 times anyway.
Weren't they broke after TPC?
They did have a problem at TPC, yes. I don't recall the circumstances, but yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to just say also there's another tractor that will just pick the front end up and go with it. Got a good combination. I believe that's an Ace chassis. Those chassis work very well, it seems like. It's a strong running machine for sure.
Question for you, Jordan. Do you think the older style sleds, 80s and 90s, old Ironside, Heartbreaker, Mechanical Mule, when they're heavier-ish, would it help in today's world with that set of the drawbar early?
That's a really good question. That's making me think. I'll tell you this: we'll run some sleds. Maybe not in the past year or so, but when we would hook at a PPL event to a Richard Love sled, he would in fact put a weight up in the front of the rails, a 2,000-pound weight up there, and that kept that pan from picking up. And I'll be honest, I feel like the class put on probably a better show with that, just because it's not like you want to nail the front of the pan down and you can't pick it up, because I do believe there's something to that a little bit to let you get going and get some speed up. But boy, just somewhere in between like that. I don't think like that old sled, and I don't think, let's say, like a that's one end of the spectrum. Bauer sled lets you pick the pan way up. Somewhere in the middle, I feel like it would be the biggest help.
Yeah, I've seen that tactic employed here with a couple of different sleds here in Michigan, where they actually put it behind the buckboard on the skid pan. It's essentially a dead load, but it does help keep it down and gives those guys that quick early drawbar that they're looking for. Depending on the class, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, for sure. And too, the track makes such a difference too.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I'm going to go to number 9, and for number 9, I've got our guest, our man of the hour, Plastic Team and Silver Bullet. As you said, not quite there this year, but that doesn't mean that it was bad. You're in it, just not quite up to the history and your expectations, quite honestly.
No, not at all. We're I see the potential, so I see it there. I not saying it would be number 1, but I see the potential of it being definitely in the top 4, top 5. It, as you know, it's pretty hefty up at the top of this class.
Yes, it does. It gets deep. We do go there.
Very much so. I'll go with my number 9. I've got the newest of the Gansberg family, the Run Deer 2 tractor. He had 9 top 5s, PBL 4th place points. He missed a couple hooks, but on a new tractor, they did pretty well this year once they figured it out.
Like it. I was actually impressed seeing them the handful of times I got to. Both those tractors, definitely impressed.
Yep. I had the same thing for my number 9, Charles.
Rutton Deer?
Yep, Rutton Deer 2.
Hey, according to Bonnie, they're for sale.
Nothing wrong with that.
Buy it before you can build it. That's the world we're in now.
For a lot of guys, that's very true.
Yeah. We'll roll up to number 8. For me, I went to our Monday night guest this week. Brent Payne, Galat 1. Seems like it's kind of the development tractor. It's the I won't say it on the air, but the F around and find out tractor for that team, I think, where stuff gets tested. But maybe that ranking is a little bit of recency bias based on the performance at the Enderley to wrap up the season for those guys. But that's where I put that one.
That's good. That's good points. I went in a different direction. I went with one of the Hall tractors. I went with the taking care of business. 7 top 5s. It always made really good passes. Went to the Enderley, NCPA top 5 in points, but never did quite get a win.
Yep.
Was
For
that
mine,
the monster pass at Toma, and then the sled got reset?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes,
Maybe.
yeah.
Yeah, that was. I mean, he laid down a heck of a run there, so definitely showed his potential.
It's really. I think it started about halfway through last year. They found a little bit of something with it, and it stepped up its game big time.
Definitely.
Yep.
Mick Broughton's watching tonight. Buying it's no fun, but it's cheaper to buy a running pulling vehicle and cut it apart and put your own beliefs and knowledge into it, and that's for sure.
Yep. For my number 8, I had Silver Bullet. He was 3rd in the NTPA points. And like you said, just off year.
No, yep, no argument there. Like I said, we're and I to be perfectly honest with you too, I don't have the time that I would like to put into it. I'm like probably a lot of guys my age. I got kids that are of age that they're into all kinds of sports and everything, and I kind of refuse to let pulling take away from that. I decided that like when we have kids. And because like Kevin Schmucker told me and my wife one time, it was just the perfect thing. He said his daughter was on a travel softball team, and Danny would be upset. Hey, why aren't we going pulling more? How could we miss because of this? Because of that. And he said, I always said, like, pulling will be around forever. daughter playing softball, that only lasts so long.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's kind of where we're at as a family, because we really are like a family team, and everybody pitches in, everybody goes, and it's like we're not on idle, but we can't put in a full effort. Now, take 5 years from now, when kids are a little bit older, and my daughter, my son's really interested, and like, hey, let's do this, then you know what I mean? It's like, hey, let's go for it then.
Yeah, I've got nothing but respect for you for that decision. I'm in the same boat right now. Mine are working through their high school years, and they're into everything. And yeah, I find myself just saying, no, I want to be home and be dad, because 3 years from now, then I can flip the switch the other way.
Yeah. Yep.
Justin LaFolette's watching tonight. Asks, speaking of that, you grew up around it, of course. Most memorable pull the Super Stealer from your childhood.
Well, one that I can remember for sure is and at the Buck, Pennsylvania, Lancaster, PA. That's when it split the block in half. I know there's a video of it on YouTube. I think it was 93, I think. But yeah, when it split the block in half, that was pretty memorable.
We get done with the rankings. I'm going to go digging, and I'm going to find that photo of you on it in Max Simpson's shop.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
I love that photo.
That was late 80s. Yeah.
Yeah. That one's super cool. We'll get to that. Stay tuned. All right, I'm going to go up to number 7, and I'm probably going to catch some flack for this one, but I went back to the state well, and I came up with the name of the Keeners in Bambi. They stayed in their sandbox, but while they were there, the guys they beat kind of tells me that if they untrailered it at a Champions Tour event, they're going to be in it.
Who's driving it now?
Frank and Bill share.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
now Frank's got a 2-wheel drive, so I think Bill's doing a little more of the super stock.
Yeah, I no offense to them, but I didn't really think about them at first. But they, like you said, they do make really good passes, and they're really tough. But for my number 7, I'm going to go the second tractor, the original tractor of the Gansmer family in Rutten Deer. 10 top 10s. He had a regional win that me and Brent saw in Decorah. They missed a couple hooks, but he's been a past NCPA champion and really tough.
Yep. Going into my number 7, I've got Extremely Armed and Dangerous. They suffered a little bit of breakage with that tractor this year, but it's always a contender whenever it shows up to the track, as anything is out of that stable.
Oh, can't hate it.
Hey, Charles, I did look. So Bill did take 5th at Bowling Green. So
Yeah.
Did he really?
and he's a fun guy to hang out with if you ever met him.
Yeah, the Keeners are pretty cool people. They for sure are. And they've been around, done it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they really have, for sure.
He was one of the guys. I mean, I kind of came of age, early 90s, and when he was running the 1066 Super Stock that became Old Bonnie as a pro stock for Norm Ware around here, and then eventually that tractor went across the pond. But just the evolution of a bunch of different tractors, and always never really committed all in on the Grand National Tour. I think maybe Dwayne or who's his son, Dwayne the son, right, with Triple X, he committed kind of big time for a while, a few years there.
Yeah, that was Frank.
Frank,
Dwayne
yeah,
the
Frank.
son.
Excuse me, Frank. But always just a kind of a state regional. But that's not dismissing them by any means. They're tough. Always have been.
Where did Triple X go?
Got parted out.
Did
Yeah.
it?
Yep.
I think the frame got bent one too many times, and it wasn't fixable.
Yeah, so actually in 2021, when they hurt the motor, they had the spare block still from Triple X that they put into it. So they still have that laying around, and supposedly the hood is on a tractor somewhere.
I think you're right. I can't remember who it went on to.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was one of the few that made an MXIH actually look good.
Yeah.
And that's a red guy saying that. I don't like them.
Depends on who makes them or how you do it.
Yeah, it does. We jokingly, no offense to you, Shane, I know you got one, but we jokingly refer to them as manatees.
Yeah, I don't disagree too much.
All right, up to number 6.
Question in the comments.
Yeah, what you got?
Yep. There was a question from my brother, at least, but
Yeah.
Jordan, that's for you. Have you ever ran a full regional circuit before? You've always been Grand National Champions Tour.
We've always been Grand National or Champions Tour. Now, with the Super Steeler, my dad ran back in the day. There was a Pro National circuit, which I think they've tried to do maybe something with that recently. But that was supposed to be like your stepping stone to Grand National. So we're talking early '90s. My dad, the Super Steeler, ran that, but we're actually a regional schedule now.
Another question from him, and I think based on what you've already said tonight about concentrating on family first, asking if Reloaded will ever return.
Never say never, but it won't be recent, or it won't be in the near future. That's for sure.
Fair point. All right, we'll go up to number 6, the top rung of the bottom half of our top 10 for me. That's where I put Gansemer and the Rutten Deer original flavor. Really was impressed with their performance in 2022. I think they really showed a hand that they're strong and they're legit, and we'll see if they can keep it up in 2023, but that's where I've got them.
Yeah, they'll definitely keep their success going if they don't change anything. But my number 6, that's where I've got the Galot number 1. Like you said, Imberly will win 7 top 5s. For an experimental tractor, as he said, you can't take away it's a good tractor.
For sure. Absolutely.
I've got the same thing for my number 6 as well.
As you guys probably know, but boy, when I start looking at these names and thinking, it's hard to put the top 10 because, man, you think of a lot of different ones and think, boy, you know what I mean? It's no like clear-cut rank. A lot of them are mumbo-jumboed in there.
They are.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you. I'd made the comment to the guys earlier today that like this week picking this show, this is one of the tougher ones that I've had to sit down and try to parse out and come up with a ranking that I feel like I could defend.
Yeah. I'll tell you one I've thought of just sitting here, and I'm not sure if they had a chance to get out this year, but the Metzger family out of Ohio too, they're always tough contenders whenever they show up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't disagree with that one. I think they're still waiting on parts. They blew it up pretty bad tail end of the season prior.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple tractors out there still. I mean, Longs are another one that usually they only go to Wheatland, but when they do, I mean, they park it up there.
Yeah. Hotham's fixing to come back too, it looks like.
Yeah, I guess last week he finally took the chassis up to Blackburn to get the engine put in, and he's been waiting and waiting and waiting. So
it looks good.
Can we wait so long?
All right, down to our top 5. At number 5, that's where I put John Strickland and the Galot too. Only one win on the year, but just consistent with it. I think he's one of the probably more natural drivers in the class, I would say. Just no drama, really. He just gets the job done and handles things. And a run from him typically is unspectacular to watch, but it just goes far. He has it figured out.
There he does.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that tractor's tough for sure. It's take what 2-3 years ago, probably it couldn't be beat. And I think it's still there. But I think like a couple of the other ones, I'm sure they're trying, a little bit of new stuff, and it takes time to get that stuff worked out.
Yeah.
Yep. Definitely. For my number 5, I went with the only diesel, and that's the triple bypass tractor of the Ross family. Never ran many unlimited super stock hooks. I know there's 4 on the PPL side and 2 on the NTPA side, but when you got 3 wins and 5 top 5s against these types of tractors, that's pretty good. That's really good.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely a good running tractor. And I, like I was saying a little bit earlier, I think that diesel lends itself good, especially on certain tracks for sure in our class.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
For my number 5, I've got the original Rutten Deer. He took a win at Rockwell, and he was the NTPA champion this past time. Barely just edging out Ross because I don't believe Ross is able to make the second hook at Bowling Green.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
you're right.
Because they ran 1 session of unlimited super and 1 session of diesel, and then they were done for some reason.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, working our way up at number 4. That's where I put in extremely armed and dangerous. 3 wins on the year with Champions Tour. A pretty decent record when it comes to that. It's power ranking. Wins are what it's about. And of those, actually, 3 on Champions Tour, 1 on the Grand National. And all 3 of those Champions Tour wins were by more than 4 feet over the next guy on that night. That's the kind of dominance you need to go to the front in a power ranking, in my mind. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Copy that over. I got the same thing. Record speaks for itself.
Number 4 is where I had triple bypass for the same reasons you guys gave.
I think by now we're probably at a point where all 3 of us can predict our top 3s based on what's already been said and where these are going to all land for the rest of this program, which kind of tells me that the 3 of us are on a wavelength here when it comes to some of this stuff. So at number 3, that's where I did put in triple bypass. 3 wins on Champions Tour. Didn't hook all the time, but of those 3 wins, 2 of them were by more than 10 feet, and I think 1 was like way out there. So that's where I put the Ross family.
Yeah, we did get questions on why I didn't have them in top 10 diesel supers. For one, it was just I kind of wanted to fit more diesel supers on my list, and they run unlimited supers, and I wanted to consider them there because they're always tough. But
it does make them probably in terms of my list, that probably makes them the only one that's going to appear in more than one spot this winter.
Probably, yeah. I mean, whenever it came out of TPC last year, they said they were going to run open super stock instead of diesel.
Yep.
And all the power to them. But number 3, that's where I've got John Strickland, Galot 2 wins, 8 top 5s. He's the NTPA runner-up, but John, you can't go against him in his driving skills. He's really good.
Yep. Same for me on Galot too.
In particular, I know when we had interviewed him in the past, I asked him, how much different is it going from the super stock and then going in the pro modified? You have to retrain your brain. And he said pretty much no. The environment is so different that the muscle memory and all that really doesn't come into play for him across the 2 different disciplines. And he's good at and to champion in both.
That's awesome.
Yeah, John is a great guy. That's a great family. It's nice to have people like that in our class. Got good running, nice looking stuff. Just a good guy.
Totally agree. All right, number 2. I've got some guy out of Ohio, wild man, Mr. Jeff Hurt Weinberg.
Copy it. 4 wins, 10 top 10 or 10 top 5s. He was PPL runner-up, but wild man, like you said.
Yeah, just make it 3 while we're at it.
He can
Second-
copy all
I
your
don't
number
know. He
ones as
doesn't
well,
get his
huh?
helmet off and jump out of the cage as fast as he used to. But
Has anyone timed him yet in the mini rod?
Yeah, actually, at Bowling Green, we had a bet with the people I sit by, and we had a bet on the over under of how fast you get out, and I bet the under 3 seconds, and they took the over, and he is out in under 3. So
Nice.
Man's quick.
I wonder
just
who's number one.
I'll let you guys go ahead and talk. I'm just going to start typing because I already know what it's going to be across the board.
Yeah. I got the record here of him. He has 7 wins this year. He had 19 top fives, which is he didn't miss a top 5 the entire year. He was never out of it. NCPA and PPL title. He won the BG ring. Recency bias or whatever you want to call it. That's dominance.
Yep. In my notes, I literally put in brackets, nobody touched him this year at all. This year was something special for that tractor. I hope it repeats it next year, and I really hope we see HD and Farm Show in February.
Yeah, I mean, that's another one of those ace chassis. Boy, it just goes to work. It's it maybe doesn't absolutely make the most power like out of their tractors. I mean, I'm sure it's close, but boy, that combination of the power, the chassis, the tires, the whole 9 yards, I wouldn't be changing nothing. I can tell you that.
I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna touch the third rail when it comes to this class here, and you don't have to respond to it, Jordan. I'm not putting you in the spot, but with the success of that push rod motor, kind of makes you wonder about all this back and forth we've had about the 903 Cummins the last 20 years. What was the point?
Yeah,
You
well,
don't have to respond to that.
no, it don't bother me. Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing is back then I think they had them turned up enough to where they make obviously the most power in our class, but Terry split the block down at Louisville in 19, I think it was. So I think they knew right then we can't probably run it quite that hard to keep it living. So I feel like then to run it where it can live, now that opens the opportunity up for different motors to compete. If you understand what I'm saying. In other words,
Yeah, I follow you.
they ran those things way harder back then when that was all going on. Now they got like a throttle restrictor for better terms, but do you know what I'm saying? The boost turned down where the things will live and definitely make plenty of power to win, obviously, as you can see. Where their biggest disadvantage is and that'd be the most in the class is, most of the top guys, including ourselves, like you have to run a lower drawbar a lot of the times. They got to run a way low drawbar because they just don't have very much movable weight with those things. Those are just heavy motors and big block and a lot of cast iron in those things, and they're just heavy, and that's in the middle of the tractor, and that's not out on the front where you need all the weight. So that's a little bit of a disadvantage for sure that way.
Yep, makes sense.
I remember it seemed like everybody went to a V8.
There was a trend at one point.
Yeah. I think International Threat's never been anything but a V8, has it?
correct. It was built right after they built the 903 of Terry's Extremely.
Okay.
For Josh. Yeah.
Yeah, and like being in the class and just seeing it evolve, it's unreal. I can't stress enough to be able to make a nice pass from one end to the other where you just picked a front end up, where it's not one wheeling at all. You know, your wheel speeds are basically locked up, and it makes up that, like, you think you gained 1,000 horsepower, but it's unbelievable what that nice pass does for you. It's unreal.
Mm-hmm.
Big confidence booster.
I mean, it's like our tractor not being able to get that power to the ground by backing it off. I don't know, probably 800-900 horsepower. It looks like it has more just because it can pull better. Getting that to the ground, get the sled moving, and there's a lot of work goes into what it takes to get the sled moving and get going.
Jordan, I misremembered this photo. It wasn't the Super Steeler. It was you on Screaming Demon.
Screaming Demon, yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we were. My dad back then got some parts off of Max Simpson, and we were. I think it was maybe that Pro National year. I forget what we hurt. Maybe a turbo. We pulled up in Michigan, and we stopped there. And Max, of course, had all kinds of parts back then, and spent the week there basically with him, like, between pools. And but my dad and him go way back, just talking to each other, and both having D21s obviously, and in diesel. And he was a great guy. Brought a lot of innovation into the sport back when it wasn't CNC this and CNC that. That was back whenever you had to make it work yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Max Simpson is necessarily a name that's a household name for a lot of fans of this sport. How important was he to what diesel pulling, and I won't just limit it to super stock, diesel pulling in his lifetime, and how much has he missed now today that he's gone?
Well, for back then, as you guys know, you look at the history of it, you take your 7,000 pound class, super stock class, an Alice Chalmers was very, very competitive, if not the strongest in that class. Where you've seen the internationals start to shine would be like the 9,500 and the 12,000 pound class back then. But Max was he obviously smart, good with motors. By today's standards, turbos, nothing like today's standards, obviously. But for back then, just figuring and knowing some stuff, and being able to just kind of get that balance. And then you've seen how strong Jerry Van Dorpy's tractor was, and Shane Dorf. And so he was producing good parts for a long time.
His water valve, I see those things everywhere. They're not just in pulling vehicles, they're in drag racing stuff too. Is production for that? Are they still making those? Is somebody handling that to keep those out there?
I personally know, just because of my dad bought one, might have been a year and a half ago, like whenever he started building his super farm, he bought one. And as of this very second, I don't know, but I do know they're everywhere, man.
Yeah. Definitely his universal contribution to sport was that. If we're going to sum up Max Simpson in one thing, it's definitely that.
Yeah, I mean, when you think of international diesel, especially back in the day, you obviously think of Jerry Legaud and Hypermax, and I don't think you could think of Alice Chalmers and not think of Max Simpson.
Right.
And and obviously nowadays the Alice Chalmers, that block is just outdated. But boy, back in its time, like I say, a lot of guys with D21, with that 426 block had some good success.
Sure did. Quad Squad and
yep,
others beside them. And there was even, I think, at some level, AC themselves was backdooring some stuff in terms of parts and support into pulling. They're one of the few manufacturers, maybe the only manufacturer that did that.
Oh, they were, yeah, and that maybe that way of thinking is why they went bankrupt, but or had to sell out. But no, they absolutely were. You know, if maybe it's not a good thing, but boy, if all the companies were like that, who knows where the pulling would be? You know, now.
Yeah, definitely agree. And unfortunately, I think we're in a world and in a society today where, you know, certainly if you pay any attention to what's going on with the diesel performance for pickups, they wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole now. That's just the world we're in.
Oh, yeah, and I mean, I guess I can see it. Like, in other words, like, we don't want that our name associated with something that could cause, you know, harm to somebody, God forbid, or blowing up, or I guess like for brand image or whatever. But boy, it would be pretty cool to see some, you know, corporate back stuff and see with that kind of technology, that kind of money, like what could happen.
Yeah, it would be interesting, and I think it's one of the few realms where there might actually be some backfeed of technical know-how into the OEM. I mean, modern auto racing, I don't think it really happens too much any longer. It's become so divorced in terms of their realities, but I think in the pulling world, yeah, there's still some reliability and durability testing that could go on that could backfeed into their
and I really think the biggest thing would be somebody to get the electronic fuel figured for the diesels.
Yes.
And a big corporation like that that would just be where the magic happened.
You're absolutely right on that one. We're seeing one company in particular push that with some of the semis, but how much data share could go on if you open that up to a lot broader market.
Yeah. I think, you obviously, like, everything is modern and computerized as everything is today. They could in-house kind of troubleshoot, some kind of setup like that and really give feedback and just really have like a team of these brainiacs work to make that, write the programs and make those injectors work and all that kind of stuff that goes on. It'd be pretty amazing.
Totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guys, let's start hearing it in the comments. What class do we need to tackle next week? We're closing in on our hour time commitment, so start letting us know what we're out of super classes, except for super farm. We're done with the super stocks, all of them.
We're done with the multi-turbo stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're pretty much out of that.
Did you guys do semis yet?
We did not.
No, we haven't.
That is another super.
Yes.
I'll take that under advisement that as of right now, the clubhouse leader is to do semis because Jordan said so.
I'm going to also put an honorable mention in your guys' list. I'm going to put in the Mises. So I think they're one that they don't show up a lot, but when they do, they're usually up there.
Did
they usually hooked a couple times at the ITPA, and they're usually winners of it. So it's a good one.
Yeah, that's a sneaky tractor. They don't show up often to a big pool, but when they do, boy, especially in a few years past here, they jump up and they get a win. I remember down in Evansville, I can't remember what year, but it would have been right before the pandemic, I feel like. And we ended up second to them suckers.
Yeah.
It's tough for me. I always think of them as being a light super still. Like I don't think of that game.
Me too.
No, they do make noise though.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm seeing unlimiteds. I see 1.5. I do see a light pro. I think we're holding off on light pro until we're done with the national classes.
Yeah, we're trying to keep to the Grand National Champions Tour stuff for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I didn't know if we considered Silver Series to be there yet.
I mean, at some point we're going to run through everybody, so I don't.
2-wheel drives. I haven't seen just one class pop up yet, more than one.
Boy, 2-wheel drives, that'd be tough top 10, huh?
That's going to be really
That-
hard.
I need more than a
way
week.
worse than minis.
Yeah. Well, there's over 200 of them. Trust me, I have a list of them.
Uh-huh.
We might need that list for that one.
Well, that list needs to get updated because there's been a lot of change on it. So
Yeah, I
We
bet.
we could devise a top 10 list for 2-wheel drive truck. There would be 10 trucks and only 3 teams. I mean,
You're not wrong.
Yeah, I don't.
Burboss says mod twice. So
Burbox says mod
3
times
times.
3.
Mod will be the easier one of the modified class just because you can run PPL/NGPA.
Yep.
yeah, model be easier than unlimited, but
Well, more of a choice there. Mr. Chris, Charles, if you could put that on there.
light limited super stocks.
All right, limited super with the cock shuts.
Charles, what do they run in those?
the 2 Michigan-based ones have been Hercules engines,
Okay.
but the 40 is getting repowered. Not a Hercules, and I'm not necessarily at liberty to say just yet what it's going to be, but it will be different. It'll still be an Alki, but it's not going to be a Hercules.
I can probably guess.
Maybe.
Interesting.
You might get part of it. You might
Okay.
get part of it.
Jordan, is light limited big up there in Pennsylvania?
No, not at all. What I was saying, like that class my dad's going to run, where they put, I don't want to get this wrong because then someone will correct me. They run here they call it the Limited Pro with the Super Farms, but these Limited Pros, I'm pretty sure are limited to an A pump, but any size charger. And they run at like 8,700 pounds. And then the Super Farms would just be like any Super Farm you can think of, 640. You are allowed to run intercooler, and they get to weigh 9,300 or 9,400. So there's about a 600-700 pound difference in the two. And what happened this past year, if they had the sled setting where you would spin out anywhere between 300 and 320, they were neck and neck. If you would get them to where they'd spin out 340, 350, then that's when the Limited Pros would take over.
Okay.
It really makes for a good class because, like around here, Rick Fikes had Full Pool Productions back in the day. He started combining classes like that. Like he would do the Super Stock, Pro Stock class because we just didn't have enough to run 2 different classes. There wasn't not quite as many tractors around here compared to like out in, Ohio, certain parts. So he had to combine the classes, and it tried to make it pretty fair. And overall, it's tough when you combine them classes because if you don't have the top runner of this class and the top runner of this class, then you're not really comparing very good that way. You know what I mean? But overall for the guys that do run here, it's worked out pretty well.
Yeah. They still run that Super Stock and Pro Stock combo, don't they?
Yes, they do.
I thought so.
Yep. Not 9,500 Super Stock, 10,000 pound Pro Stock.
Yeah. I think the majority of it is Pro Stock, though.
It is. Yep. And then if you run alcohol, you're only allowed 540 and either 2 or 3 chargers max, I think.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to table that comment, that class, until after Shipshawana. I've already decided that I have to wear a helmet to work that event for light pro classes. I don't want to have to wear it for 2 classes because of what I said.
For good reasons.
Yeah.
That's also going to take forever.
Yeah. Because you start getting down here to where I live and into light limited super origins, I like to say, where it kind of started down here. And there's so many down here in my area. It's not even funny.
I might even try an experiment where I can come up with the craziest list I can possibly publish just to see if I can get Jake and Dick's server to crash.
It wouldn't take much of that class. It would not take much at all.
It's very,
There
very
are just so many good running ones all over the country, though, that's why it's going to take so long to make that list.
Yeah.
There is one in particular, though, that sticks out in my mind because he always comes down here and plays in Murfreesboro every year from up in Wisconsin. And he always does really well down here, though. But we'll save that for whenever we get to that class.
I know who it is.
Yep.
All right.
Loudest one out of the bunch.
Yep.
Brent and I have to get out of here and go into a meeting for a Pullers Championship, so we got to pick a class. What are we doing next week?
I say follow Mr. Gerbach, go modified.
All right, Gerbach, we're going with you.
Mods? All right. Mods it is.
That's a little bit more crossover territory.
I'm good with it. Jordan, thank you so much for taking your evening off tonight to spend an hour with us. I really appreciate it.
Hey, not a problem. I appreciate you guys asking, and glad I could do it. Thank you guys. Hey, Bill, talk pulling anytime. I'm up for it. No problem.
All right, fair enough. We'll be in touch, and hopefully I get to see you sometime, somewhere this winter.
Okay, guys. Hey, good seeing you guys.
Yep. Thanks.
Good
Jordan.
talk to you again, man.
Thanks.
Thanks. See you next week. We're going to do modifieds next week. That's it. On behalf of the rest of the crew, I'm Charles. See ya!